the goal of accounting is to make the information useful to the end users. And so it has to be meaningful to you, right? It doesn't work if you're an ice cream shop and I put chicken on your P&L. Like, that's not going to help anyone, right?
Sure about that? You sure about that? You sure about that?
Welcome to Restaurant 365 Presents Behind the Numbers, a show where we talk to restaurant owners, operators, chefs, kitchen managers, CFOs, and everyone in between about what makes successful restaurants tick. Before we get started today, a quick reminder just to like and subscribe to the show wherever you're watching, and please consider leaving a review. It really does make a difference, and it helps us continue to bring you these incredible guests and conversations while we grow and support our restaurant community. And with that, I'm your host, Marc Cohen.
And I'm Rich Sweeney. And we're here today with Kristen Sandhurst, a partner at Edotto Accounting Services and CFO of affiliated companies that franchise both Taco John's and Slim Chickens across Iowa. Kristen, that already sounds like a lot, but honestly, I know that is like a fraction of all of the things that you do with all of the different companies and businesses and everything that you've got your hands in. It makes my calendar seem tame compared to yours. But tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me, Marc and Rich. Super glad to be here today. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, as Rich said, I'm Kristen. I'm a partner at Edotto Accounting Services, but we have affiliated entities where we're franchisees of Taco John's and Slim Chickens. So we currently operate 20 QSR Taco John's restaurants in Iowa, and then we have 3 Slim Chickens. And we've been in this space a long time. I work with my dad, my sister, and my brother-in-law, so very much a family business.
Wow.
And we've always talked about doing accounting for other restaurants because my dad's a CPA and so am I, and so is my brother-in-law. And we never really had the tech stack to do it until we made some strategic changes a few years ago, including to Restaurant 365. So about a year ago, we started taking on accounting clients in the restaurant space and then a few in some other industries as well. So that's what we do.
That's awesome. It's just like restaurants where like becomes a family affair, and then you think you're going to get away from it, and somehow you get pulled back to it. Except you've got like the best of both worlds. It's the accounting and the restaurant side kind of all smashed together.
That's right.
And I've seen Rich's calendar, and I can confirm it is a dumpster fire. Well, look, Kristen, we always like to start with sort of a big fundamental question, and I'm curious for you because you sort of sit on both sides of the house, right? You're doing the accounting side, but also you're an operating partner. So, what do you think is the most important thing people in their restaurant should be focusing on right now, day to day, week to week? What should they be doing?
Yeah, so we're in a really interesting time economically. We have some things, going on in the Middle East that are driving up gas prices. And particularly over the last year and a half, the consumer has become really, I would say, sensitive to what they're spending their money on. And so for right now, the biggest focus for us in our restaurants is top line. What are we doing on top line sales? What are we doing to grow top line sales? We like to say that, to rip off the Bible a little bit, sales covers a multitude of sins. And so when you're doing, more sales, labor, food, things like that become a little bit easier to manage. And we've just seen such a decline in traffic counts, and people have tried to make up for that with price and with different things like that, but really managing that top line as much as you have control over and trying to grow that in different ways is honestly our biggest focus right now.
I've always said sales fixes everything.
But sales cures everything.
Covers a multitude of sins. I think that's that's definitely a little more appropriate.
It's super appropriate for restaurants. There's always all kinds of sinning that's going on in the restaurant space.
I always get nervous when I see somebody's chart of accounts come over and they've got that miscellaneous GL code. I'm like, what is that?
And why is there so much in there?
Ask my accountant. It's the worst account in QuickBooks there ever was created.
Yes. That GL code always makes me nervous as well. And typically there's a very large balance in there.
Yes, it's the whole P&L.
I'm not sure what to do with it. Well, let's talk numbers, right? So you are how many locations do you currently have?
23 that we operate.
Oh, wow. Okay, awesome. And it's 2 concepts?
2 concepts. Yep. So 20 QSR Mexican, and I'm less involved in that side than I used to be. And then the 3 Slim Chickens, I'm heavily involved in day-to-day operations of those.
And then you've been using Restaurant 365 for how long now?
Going on, I think this will be 3 years.
Awesome.
Yep. So before that, we came over. So I know the founders of Restaurant 365 started their career life selling Microsoft Dynamics. And so we were on Microsoft
Yes,
Dynamics for like 20 plus years, and then came over to R365 when we decided to get with the 21st century. So
we're aligned. I love it. You're on the same journey. And then you sort of have your finger on the pulse of QSR chicken. We were talking just before the show started. Highest volume chicken concept.
with Chick-fil-A, they just came out with their FDD, and their top restaurant, which I believe is in the Miami area, does $20 million in sales on 6 days a week. Which is ridiculous.
6 days a week. That's right. No Sundays.
Like $64,000 a day. So when we opened our first Slim Chickens, we did almost 26,000 our first day. And granted, we are still learning the concept and how it works. It would be easier to do 26,000 now, but we thought we were not going to make it. And so I can't imagine doing 3 times that every day. It's ridiculous.
Every single,
We
and
can
every
imagine.
every time it's a pleasure.
That's
Always
right.
with a smile.
We'd love to be doing $64,000 a day. That
You
would
can
cover
have-
up all the sins.
That's right. That's right. And can you imagine how many lemons they have to cut? Like just the amount of prep they
Oh.
must have to do for that.
See, and I feel like that's one of those things I would cut immediately like that. And I'm just like, if somebody asks for it, we'll provide it, but we're not going to put a giant bucket of lemons out in the middle of the rest. But like, sales fixes everything. $64,000 a day. We can throw some lemons out. It's not really going to matter.
Oh, no, but they have to cut them for the lemonade too.
Oh,
Not
that's
just the
right.
ones out there, all the lemonade.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Full-time
no,
job.
my brain
I'm the
hurts
lemon
thinking about
cutter
it.
at Chick-fil-A. That's my job.
Well, you've sort of been part of this. It sounds like a bit of a family affair on the accounting side, but really on the franchising side, this has been part of your culture since you were a kid, right? Like you would take family vacations and go to franchising conventions. Is that accurate?
That's right. Yeah, Taco John's is a very family-oriented brand, and my dad has, been working with this particular franchise group for over 30 years, and he's an owner now and whatnot. But we would go to Taco John's convention as our family vacation because it was usually someplace fun, and the kids were always like, we didn't attend the general sessions, but we're invited to the meals, and then they always had like a fun night. And one time, not kidding you, in San Antonio, Texas, they had live armadillo roping was the activity. Like the actual animals in the hotel ballroom. Like I'm still not sure how that was a thing, but that was.
I don't think you can do that today.
No, probably not. But
Sorry, just in my mind, I'm playing out the cartoon of that in the
yes,
ballroom.
yes.
Yeah.
It's exactly how you're imagining it went.
That's awesome. So you were involved in the family business at a relatively young age?
Yeah. So I remember in high school, my dad took me with him one time and we did restaurant tours and went around to all the restaurants. And I was kind of business minded, I guess I would say. Like he taught me Microsoft Excel when I was like 6 or 7, so we've been going at it for a long time. But yeah, then after college, I started my career in public accounting, did that for a couple of years, then came back and worked for the Taco John's for a while, took a little bit of a hiatus at a publicly traded bank, and then came back when we started getting into the Slim Chickens. So.
Okay. So really just truly a family affair of like starting with it, moving up through it. That's cool to kind of see. Like I grew up, my dad was a restaurant manager. He used to like take me to the restaurants and we would like kind of, I would laugh. He would do like line checks and I didn't know what a line check was. I just knew we got to go down the line and like try stuff. And I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. Growing up hearing about P&Ls and audit reports without fully understanding what it was definitely made it click later on in life. And it just sticks with you in kind of a weird, different way that only happens when you grow up in this industry.
Yeah, and I kind of grew up on the office side. I wasn't necessarily like making tacos or whatever, but was definitely exposed to it pretty much all my growing up years, and it does kind of get in your blood. So
It is definitely in the blood. It's funny to me that you got the accounting bug early, and you ended up going into like corporate accounting, right? On like more of a finance. And did you ended up gravitating back towards the restaurants? Was that just a dynamic move? Was that just a lateral move? What sort of caused that shift for you?
yeah, so I went into auditing, and I was living in the Twin Cities, and I'm the oldest of I have 3 sisters, and so I just felt like I was missing out on them growing up. They were still in high school, playing sports and all of that, and so then an opportunity came up to work in the Taco John's office, and so I decided to take that and come back and be closer to family. So that was really kind of what drove it. So.
And it sounds like there's a little bit of CPA in the blood for everybody. You mentioned half your family's involved now on the accounting side of things. So I'm curious, when you came back, what was the state of the accounting office at that point? Was there a tech stack at all? Was it shoe boxes of invoices and receipts? Where were we at?
Oh, well, you're giving me too much credit. All that credit goes to my dad. So he's been very technologically advanced since the beginning. So when he came on working for this franchise group, they've been in business for 50 years and he's been with them 31. And so he put in place Microsoft Dynamics. He cleaned up all the old shoe boxes. So they had a lot of really great systems in place when I was there, but it was still, the 2010s. And so there weren't the things like there were now, but they were pretty sophisticated. We imported almost everything via some type of automation or whatever. And we would use macros to macro things into the accounting system. And so, that was kind of amazing. The old school days, I guess.
And so what led you to Restaurant 365 and ultimately starting your own accounting firm? Like what's the order of operation here? Which came first?
Well, I said I work with my brother-in-law, and his wife, my sister, had a baby. And so he went on paternity leave and I got to do his job for 2 weeks. And I was like, I cannot handle this. This is way too manual. And I had told my team, I was like, we're going to look at a GL conversion, but we probably won't look at it for a year or two. And I was like, yep, never mind. We're doing it now. This is just we can't do this anymore. We need to get with the program. And so we started looking at things. And because at that point in time, we also did payroll, full on, in-house payroll. And we used another piece of software to sort of help file the taxes, but we calculated everything. And so we're like, well, we have to get the payroll out of the ledger first, because if we get the payroll out of Dynamics, then we can move the GL to something else. And so we moved all of the payroll and HR stuff out to Paylocity. And some of that came with our Slim Chickens as well, because they used an electronic HRIS system. And I tried it out our first year in Slims, and I didn't love it, but I was like, we have to do this. We're just pushing way too much paper on our Taco John's business. Mm-hmm. And so we went out and we found Paylocity, which we use for both brands. And if you want to search, you can find our case study, because they came and did a little video and everything. But so that really modernized our HR and payroll experience. And so then once we got that out of the GL, then we were free to move the GL. And my dad had heard of Restaurant 365, and we started looking, and we kind of did a full-blown RFP process. We had a requirements matrix. We had the vendors fill out things, give us demos, and we just really liked the product. And, I'm a big believer that if I demo a product, I need to be able to understand how it's going to work on the back end. So there's things I've said no to where I'm like,
absolutely,
I just don't get it. I don't get how it works. I don't see how we could use this. And so we say no. And that was we looked at Dynamics Business Central, and that was just so wide open. You could make it anything you wanted, which is probably great, but it was I don't even know where we're going to start on this. And then we also looked at Sage Intacct, and I'm so thankful we said no to that, because I have a client now who uses that, and it's a terrible interface. And so our 365, we liked the grids. Don't ever get rid of the grids. If any product engineers are watching this, please, we love the grids.
Did you hear that?
And it's just so easy to use. And so then I asked my team, post-mortem 6 months later, I'm like, what, are you glad we did this? I know it was painful. And they're like, you cannot take this away from me. They love it so much. And it has just improved our workflow tremendously. We had someone retire in kind of our HR admin function, and we ended up just not replacing her role, because we've gained a lot of efficiencies between Paylocity and our 365. And so it's been a tremendous move for our company.
Huge. Yeah. That's
I feel like I'm hearing another case study that needs to come out from our side now.
It's perfect.
It's in progress. So what did that then lead to the founding of the accounting firm of Edotto? What's the genesis story there?
Yeah. So then the last thing we did is we went cloud servers. So we got everything off of the servers that we had in the building, went everything into SharePoint and OneDrive. And so then we're like, okay, we have the tech stack where we can efficiently support other businesses. And so we started with just really low barriers to entry. We started making some digital products for restaurant owners, and I sent one of them to someone I had met 12 years ago in a networking group for the local chamber. who runs an ice cream shop now in Sioux Falls, where I live. And she was like, well, yeah, tell me more about this, but also can we meet? Like, I don't really have a ton of other resources in the community who operate restaurants, especially others who are female. Like, can we just talk? And so we just got together and we talked about her business, how it was going. You know, she needed some help on labor and things like that. They had an in-house office person who was doing their books, but we're having some problems. And I was like, well, would you just let us try to do it for you? Like, can we just try this out? And she said yes. And that has been the gateway to a lot of other things. They've referred us other work. I mean, they've been a tremendous client of ours. And with that, we took on their books, but then we've also done some consulting with them. They had never taken inventory before. So I went into the restaurant with her, and we basically looked at every single SKU, of which there were many, and we figured out pack sizes and that for all of them and got them taking inventory, and they improved their cost of goods by 300 basis points in the first year that we worked with them. And yeah, just by having awareness.
That's your case study right there.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So just by having, getting her people aware of it, getting them counting and tracking so product doesn't just disappear, knowing that there's accountability over the costs and that, someone was watching those numbers, and they did work on some portioning and some things like that with that. But, so that helped them out quite a bit. And then, yeah, it's just grown from there. So we're still small, we're still growing and kind of, getting into it, but it's been going well. So.
Small but mighty.
That's right.
But leveraging technology to make it scalable, right? So you're able to bring on more business without bringing in a bunch of extra bodies, right? I love this idea that you came in and sort of blew up the accounting solution pretty much immediately, and now they're like, you're not taking it out of our cold dead hand. Like They love it. It's like fewer clicks, it's more automations, it's making their lives easier.
Yes, the fewer clicks alone is a huge thing, and just even like. Oh, in Dynamics, if you messed up an AP transaction, you would have to void it. And then if you did your void wrong, then you'd have to void your void. And pretty much you have like 28 voids of the same transaction. You just made a mess of the GL, and like, obviously some people get nervous, like, oh, you can edit or delete transactions. Like, you can restrict that. So only certain people can do it, right? But just the fact that you can, if you need to, so that you can, just like not make a mess of your GL by voiding everything. And yeah, it's been great. And then we've really also over the last year, I've been getting into a lot more automations. And so we've been using just really as AI became more popular, not so much using AI for the automation itself, but like I would talk to ChatGPT and have it help me build the automation, including adding steps in code, which I don't know how to code. But so
you don't need to anymore.
No,
everything's a vibe code now.
That's right. And so we use some workflow automation tools. So for example, one of our point of sale systems, the way our franchisor has it set up is it combines third-party delivery and first-party orders into the same channel bucket, and we want them broken out on our P&L. And we've asked them to do it on their end, but they don't want to for whatever reason. They have other reasons, and they're like, no, we're not going to do that.
We just want your 25%.
Yeah. And so we call the API into the POS and then basically have this automation tool. It's called N8N, but we have them, it splits out the entry, but then it can drop it to the R365 FTP site. So every day that entry just gets recorded automatically. So having, R365 has an FTP site, which works great. They also have some pretty good like API OAuth type connections or OData connections rather. And so we try to use those wherever we can.
I feel like that was the greatest acronym salad that I've heard. Just piecing everything together in the best possible way, but like just connecting all of those different systems in a way that's being automated. And like you said, you're not a developer, you're not writing the code. So we talk about a lot on the show how AI has been having such an impact, especially in the restaurant space, because restaurants were the last ones to kind of adopt technology. And now just hearing that is awesome to see like how that's having such a big impact on the way that you guys are doing things, especially in order to get you the information that you want to see for your reporting in a way that, Shocker that a franchisor was not going to change their system to give you what you need, but you just found a way to work around it and still get to the end result. I love it.
Yeah, well, and I'll do a shameless plug here. So I'm going on a webinar with Kevin at the end of the month. So April 27, I believe, is the date, and we are going to be talking about AI. So you'll hear more of some of that story there. But for anyone who's watching this and isn't sure where to start, and I, yes, had acronym word salad, like I literally started with ChatGPT. What is an API? Like, I don't know what this means. I'm like, how do I, it was like the equivalent of being like, press start, click all programs.
Totally.
Like, and so I was like, what does this mean? And it would give me some answers. And I'm like, I don't get it. Break it down further. Like, give me the exact
Talk to me like I'm 12.
questions. No, not even 12, five. So.
And that's the great part with AI now, right?
Yeah.
Like you can, for me, like it's my other half is a developer and fully understands all of the acronyms and how they, and like can write it all from scratch. I've had to go into like Claude and ChatGPT and just be like, explain to me how to use you, as an AI,
Yes.
like to get the most out of it and like break it down. Like I barely know how to use a computer and I'm more tech literate than that, but just being able to have the systems and the tools teach you the best way to do it and adapt to how you've learned things has been exponential in my learning of all of these tools.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's not a search engine, right? I think that's the first mistake most people make with it. And to your point, Rich, like if you want to learn how to get better at it, just ask it. Like, hey, give me a 12-week crash course on AI that's spends 20 minutes a week, and it'll build it for you. Like it'll build you a curriculum. It'll do all of those things for you. But and Kristen, you obviously are a self-admitted data nerd. It sounds like you've been into the data since you were 6. But you're also you're what we call an R365 solutions partner, right? And so that you're engaged with a lot of our clients. But the thing I love about what you're doing is you're not just a CPA, right? You are definitely applying a consultative level of, deliverable to your clients. We're not just delivering a P&L, which ultimately is the deliverable for your team, but you're teaching them how to do, how to be more efficient, right? How to do things better. Can you talk a little bit more about sort of that approach? Does that just come naturally?
Yeah. So our goal as an accounting firm and as a solutions partner of R365 is really, like you said, to partner with our clients. Like we don't ever want a relationship where it's like, oh, you send us your stuff and 15 days later we give you a P&L and we say, here it is, and like, or however many days, but, and so we're really trying to give our clients operational insights and help them with their businesses. And so that comes in a number of different ways. Depending on the plan that you're on with us, a lot of times we'll send them a video recording going through their P&L and saying, hey, we're noticing this. And one of the things we're huge believers in is having an organized chart of accounts. And so I'm going to maybe take some pot shots here at some people, but we're like, if you just alphabetize your controllable section, which is very common, here's looking at you, standard NRA chart of accounts. But if it's just in alphabetical order, then you have maintenance in the M's and you have repairs in the R's. And now my HVAC guy came and he serviced my building, which is a maintenance plan, but he found something wrong. So he had to do a repair. So do I need to split that invoice up or what am I doing here? And it just becomes unusable. But if you group those together into a section that's called repairs and maintenance, now I can tell you just based on history. So we used to run benchmarking studies in Taco John's. My dad started that years and years ago, and I've done them in Slim Chickens as well. But, if your building is newer, you should be under 2% for repairs and maintenance. If you're kind of a middle-aged building, 2 to 3% is normal. And so it really gives you, we can give you that granularity as you look at your P&L. Like supplies, 1.25% or better is what you need to be targeting for supplies. Cost of goods, labor, you need to be, sub 60% prime cost if you want to have any chance of making money on the bottom line. And so just because we've looked at all of this data over the years, we're really big believers of teaching our clients that so that they can run their business better, organizing their P&L in such a way so that it's readable and understandable and you can gather those insights. Because if it's just all in one slush bucket, then it just becomes a backward looking tool that's not useful for anything.
Right.
But if you have it organized and sectioned off, then you can call those answers and analysis from it. And I can go back to my operations guy and say, hey, your supplies are running too high at such and such Slim Chicken's location. And then he might say, well, why? And I say, well, it's in this GL account, and that's primarily gloves. So who's just burning through the gloves in the restaurant? And really trying to tie it back to real life, right?
Yeah.
Like it has to matter in
Always.
real life. Otherwise, you're just a data cruncher and no one cares about that. And so we really try to let real life and real operations drive how we do our accounting and how we service our clients.
I love that. As the former operator who at first couldn't understand why credits and debits were important, and just tell me what the bottom line number is, right? That's all I have to care about. And then finally, especially as I was using the software as a customer, kind of learning how to drill into the numbers and really see where did that come from? And then how is that having an impact on my cost? And then being able to use that to teach other folks, the first time I looked at a P&L, I had no idea what any of it meant. And somebody was talking about R&M, and I'm thinking, well, I have a vendor called R&M, and I'm looking for that on the P&L. I was like, oh, repairs and maintenance. Okay. But being able to, like you said, find where that cost is kind of creeping up, and then where we need to benchmark it and say, all right, here's where we got to go, and then drill down and figure out where's that problem. And it turns out it's me. I'm the problem. I use way too many gloves,
Right.
Just some of those types of things. So I think it's awesome the way that you can kind of take that financial aspect and tie it back to the operation, really give them some meat on the bone to understand it better.
Yeah, well, and we look at our accounting team structure and things like that. And it's like, well, most of them are way more than accountants. They've learned over the years I can't tell you how many leaks we found from the financial statements, because they're like, hey, the water bill at this location is high. And they reach out to the GM, and then the GM's like, you know what? I went and checked and the toilet's been leaking. I'll get a plumber out, And so but we found that from the P&L side, not from anyone noticing that it was just running all the time. And so, we try to do that for our internal financials and businesses and for our clients as well.
That's fun. I thought you were making a financial metaphor there. The water leak in the P&L. No, an actual water leak that was driving up.
Yeah, an actual
the cost
water
of our
leak.
Utilities.
Or
that's awesome.
We have these sinks in our Slim Chickens, and they take a while to fill up. It's like a 3-comp sink, but it's a power soak sink, so it basically has like a jacuzzi in it. That's what we call it. And, but I'm like, why is the water bill at this location so high? Well, come to find out, they would turn the water on to fill it up and then forget that they had it on, and it would all of a sudden be going over. And so they did that like 3 times in a month, and then it's like, well, let's try to stop that, please.
Numbers don't lie. I love it.
Absolutely.
And so I'm curious, we were talking about AI, where are you sort of applying that internally in your day-to-day? I'm seeing people use it for reconciliation. I'm seeing people use it for data, transformations. What sort of additional automations have you found from an accounting level with AI?
Yeah, so I started, honestly, my journey with AI a couple of years ago. I went to the R365 conference in Nashville, and there was a speaker there, Chris, I'm not remembering his last name, but he spoke on AI, and he said,
our keynote, yes,
just start using it for legal. And so I started just using it for legal. It would draft me, I needed a catering agreement for a local high school for their concessions, so it dropped me a little 2-page agreement. And then, smaller things like that, I felt comfortable just sending on our own. Otherwise, I would have it be like a first drafter and then send it to our attorney. And then he would essentially, give me feedback on it and whatever. But then, so we've expanded into the accounting side. And so somewhat for reconciliations, a lot of it for building automations like that, where it's more of we don't necessarily have AI in the automation itself, but we use AI to help set up the automation. So we have a fair number of workflows that just run in the background every day to either push data from our back office or our POS into R365. And then, just trying to keep using it. So recently Claude came out with Cowork on Windows, which is a new thing. And so it can actually work in a folder versus before they had limits on, for example, how many files you could attach in the chat with an AI, right? Well, so I had 70 PDF files that were not even saved down. They're scanned in that I had to go through for something. And so I had Cohort go through it and log all of the data in a spreadsheet. And so it would just sit there and, open them up in the background and log the data and go on to the next one. And it did a beautiful job. And so just trying to leverage it where we can.
Right. Because who wants to do that? Right. Who wants to
Well,
sit down and go through 70 PDFs?
yeah, and they're like, AI is coming for somebody's job. I'm like, AI is not coming for anybody's job. Nobody wants to do that,
No,
to your point, Mark. Like, I got better things for my people to
absolutely.
do.
And I have this conversation with people all the time. I don't think we need to think about it in terms of replacing. Think about it in terms of replacing tasks, right? Ultimately, the end goal here is more output with less input. That's it.
Correct.
It's productivity multiplied. Like that's the way you need to be looking at it and using it. Yeah, I think it's task replacement. It's not job replacement. And yeah, nobody
Yeah.
wants to do that job.
You tie it back to the stuff, again, taking it back to operations, right? Like you can sit there and slice something, you can slice a meat by hand and that's going to take you X amount of time. Or you can use an electric slicer and that's going to cut down the time. You're not getting rid of the person who has to do the work. Somebody still needs to be there for that. Or you step it up another level and you get an automated electric slicer that can do a lot of that. So now you're just monitoring what it's doing, but you're increasing your productivity. It's the same thing with AI. You're giving it some of those tasks that nobody wants to do and spend so much time doing.
Yeah, exactly.
But have you had any misses with AI? Anytime you thought, hey, this is going to be the solution, and it just was like, no, this is not what I thought it was going to be.
I would say probably not complete misses. I mean, there's times where I'm like, especially if I'm building an automation or something like that, it will give me, here's some code to use. And then I'll put it in and I'm like, yeah, that didn't work at all. Or it didn't behave as intended.
Right.
But I think the key is you just have to go back then to Claude or go back to ChatGPT or whatever you're using and say like, that didn't work. Here's what it did. It didn't do what we had talked about it doing. Like, can you please fix it? And so yeah, lately I said I have a client on Sage Intact. The user interface is difficult at best in some of the screens. And so I just started up a chat with Claude Cowork in this instance and pointed it to an empty folder and said, like, what can we build with this? Could we build a Chrome extension? I'm in an automation community for accountants. It's called Automation Town. It does cost to be a part of. It's $50 a month, but it is so worth it because I learned so much from the people in there. And someone had been talking about a Chrome extension. And so I was like, Claude, can we build a Chrome extension to make this easier to use? And so we did. So now it does silly things for me, like check boxes on the pay bill screen automatically instead of them having to be manually checked. Like I just paste in a list of the invoice numbers that need to be paid and it will check the boxes. And so I'm building that so my team can use it, right? Then they can deploy that. Cause like, I mean, how it works a lot of times is if we take on a new client, like I'll help set up the processes and then hand it off for someone to do on the regular. And so this was a newer client and I was trying to figure out the process. And so, yeah, I built this beautiful little tool and it just bolts on and just makes the user experience better. So we've been using AI and applications like that just to help make things easier to use.
That's fantastic. Well, and I feel like you've mentioned the power of networking twice now. And I think that's something I don't think we talk about a lot. Like our community is vast, right? And, finding, I think there's something to be said about that local community that you've definitely tapped into, right? With your core accounting group, but then that global community, whether it's via LinkedIn or forums or R365 on our events, like, getting tapped into the community that's going to help you level up is so critical, not just as a restaurant operator, but as right now, I would say a technology, like as an AI adopter. Like there are so many places to go see what other people are doing and how they're using tools like R365 or Claude or GPT. If you're not doing that, do it. It is a game changer.
Yeah, and a plug for the R365 events too. I know they're going, I think, to a different structure this year, but I've gotten tremendous value from those just from connecting with other operators, but also with R365 staff. Because like if you have a very specific problem, like when we first started with R365, our sales rep said, hey, you should come to this one-day event in Chicago. Like, I'll get you tickets. And so we did. And then we were having a specific issue with reporting and we booked a little appointment at the solutions bar. And Marc, you helped us. And that was that was like a great thing, but then you have those connections because then, certain people I've met at those conferences who are R365 team members I've reached out to later and said, hey, do you know anyone who could help me with this issue?
Yeah.
More that
Oh, yeah.
broader things that are just beyond like a support ticket. Like I'm trying to conceptually understand how we could make this thing work. And that's been of great benefit. So definitely lean into that, R365 community. If you're a client, if you're not a client, you should be one. So there you go.
Shameless plug. Thank
That's
you.
right.
But you are right. We are shifting. So we're doing a single event now. It's a big annual sort of national conference. It's Transform. It'll be in November in Scottsdale. I'm sure you'll probably be there on a panel.
I bought my ticket.
If you haven't been asked, you're going to be asked. But that's sort of our theme for the year is transformation. So I'm curious as we look forward, what's transforming for the Slim Chickens maybe, or for Edotto, like what's on the horizon?
I think it is a lot of that just continued application of AI in our business and how we can leverage that to be more efficient and just really serve our clients. I think the commonality between our restaurants that we operate and our accounting business is we may be using AI in the background, but our guest interaction, our client interaction is still very much a person. We tried AI in the drive-thru at both of our concepts, 2 different providers. It was actually, It was quite good. Like it was excellent, but guests hated it. And surprisingly enough, our staff hated it. Like I put it in because I was like, I have this location. It's very hard to staff. I was like, let's try the AI because, Susie calls off for work. You can just turn the AI on and you have another body and you're not working shorthanded. But they didn't like it because I think they liked interacting with those regular people. And then the other thing it came down to was the order injection. The timing of it wasn't as fast as somebody listening over the headset and key punching it in.
Oh, wow.
And so it was just how the data connected to the point of sale on one of the concepts. But so anyway, we've decided kind of that our philosophy, and I've seen this from other people as well, but is use the AI in the back of house and in the office, keep the front of house with that human interaction.
Well said. Yep. Yeah, there's a little bit of that uncanny valley when it comes to some of these solutions where you're like, is that a real thing? Is that not a real, And the minute your brain starts to do that, you're disengaged, right? The experience has been totally cut off.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, it's obviously, the busy time of the year, busiest time of the year, I would imagine, for accounting world. I got to ask, are you like team coffee or team energy drink when you've got like busyness going on, you've got deadlines, trying to crank things through?
Coffee all the way.
All right. Hot or iced?
Hot.
This is controversial for me.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm more of an iced coffee guy, but it's okay. We can still coexist.
Cold, so I'll bring you iced coffee next time.
Yeah, go ahead, Rich. Go.
Oh, I was going to say, just kind of like from your perspective, especially like, on the accounting side, but being able to relate it back to operations, where do you think most restaurants lose money without even realizing it?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Water leaks.
Yeah, water leaks, overflowing the sink. Probably in food costs if they're not taking good inventory, just because it's really, really easy to like waste stuff. And if you're not tracking your waste, if you're not fanatical about your portion sizes, if you're not taking your inventory, like you can bleed money out the back door without even realizing it. A few fries in somebody's mouth, a meal in the garbage, a meal out the drive-through window to somebody's friend, mismade products. Like, I mean, the ways to bleed money on food are so many that if you don't have a good system for tracking it, it's problematic. So that's why, like one of our other clients that we brought on, they're on Toast for their POS, and then we got them going on R365 inventory. Just like, they're a homegrown concept, so they don't necessarily have theoretical or recipes or things built out yet. As they grow, that's on the roadmap. But like, let's just start counting inventory at least, right? So we can know what's coming in and coming out. And if you don't do that, if you don't count inventory, then your COGS is a roller coaster, and it's just based on the timing of purchases. And that's not really valuable to anyone. And so I guess I would say food cost is probably the easiest bleeder.
And that is a roller coaster ride I don't want to be on.
Right.
But It's funny. You bring up a point that I always like to drive home with the AVT. Like people are so focused on the AVT. The A without the T, still a valuable piece of your puzzle, right?
Correct.
You're still getting that journey of what did I start with? What did I buy? What did I use? Where did it go? The theoretical is going to help you figure out what went wrong, but get the actual stood up as soon as possible, because that, to your point, you were talking about a client at the beginning of the good 300 basis points, right? Like just counting something can move the needle tremendously.
Yeah. And that client doesn't have theoretical. I mean, so we just did
Right,
that through
exactly.
the actual side.
They got the A.
Yeah.
They got the A. They'll get to the VT. The A is just as important.
That's right.
I'm always kind of curious too, like in that case with that client, was it something where they just didn't see before you got involved, they just didn't see the value in counting inventory? Or because we talk to folks all the time that are just like, I don't see the point, or, my labor is so expensive, I've got to pay somebody to do that. Like when you've encountered those types of objections, like how do you kind of handle that to get people to understand like inventory is that important?
Yeah. So in the case of that very first client, they are a franchisee, but it's a local concept. And so they just don't even really have the system for it. And the franchisor doesn't have the systems. There's just a few number of units. And so it was more like we just don't even know where to start. Like, yeah, we think we should probably do this, but how do we even start? And so that was where totally overwhelming. We'll come in and we're just going to go through all of your products and we're going to get units of measure, like how does it come in the back door? What's the case size? How does it break down into a pack size? Because if you don't have units of measure, you can't count it, right? And that's fundamental to any inventory setup is what is the unit of measure structure. And so I think just having someone there to walk them through it and explain like, what does it mean, and then their case too, then sometimes it's like, well, it comes in a pack of 400, but we split it up into bags of 100 each. And so, which is fine, but just having all of that documented so that then when they do their count, it's like, well, this doesn't have to take 12 hours to count your inventory. We can help you organize your store. We can get all these pack sizes sorted. And then you can say, okay, yep, I have, 3 bags and I know they're 100 each, like boom, done.
But first, we're going to organize your chart of accounts. That's
right.
Step one.
And that is
so
right.
That it's not just food cost. It's dairy, it's produce, it's grocery. It's all the things we need to track.
And in a client like that was the very first meeting we had with them after they signed on is let's talk about your business and understand it. What are your major categories in your cost of goods? We're going to reorganize your chart of accounts. And then what other things matter to you? Because if it's not, accounting 101, they teach you on the first day, like there's data and then there's information, and data with meaning attached to it is information. Information is useful. Data is not. And so, and then the other thing is the goal of accounting is to make the information useful to the end users. And so it has to be meaningful to you, right? It doesn't work if you're an ice cream shop and I put chicken on your P&L. Like that's not going to help anyone, right? And so making it so they can understand it and so they can use it. Like that's our main goal, I guess.
Yeah, that holistic sort of consultative approach is, not everybody's doing that. So that's awesome. That's the foundation of what you're sort of building, which is fantastic.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, look, we always like to sort of wrap these things up with a bit of a hot take, and I feel like you definitely have a few. Anything about the industry, and this could be accounting specific. I know we've already talked about chart of accounts, but something about the industry you love, you hate, you want to see come back or go away. What's your hot take on the state of affairs right now?
Oh, I would say I'm not a fan. So we have kiosks in some of our restaurants and I like them, but I've been adamant with my team that they still have to have a person out there. I don't like the whole unattended dining room in QSR. Like there's a couple of certain concepts where it's like, if you need something, you're basically hollering back into the kitchen, like, hey, you, like, can someone help? Not a fan.
It's like when I go to Home Depot and I stand there. And I'm waiting. I'm like, somebody ask me if I need something, please.
Please, right. So I'm not a fan of completely unattended dining rooms. Like we got to have a little bit of the human, like have a little floater out there who can help,
Absolutely. Let people do things more for themselves, because we talked about this recently where, everyone's getting so used to using the kiosks to kind of do some things on their own. But yeah, everybody we've talked to that's seen a lot of success with the kiosks specifically talks about
Yeah.
they still have somebody involved. They still have people that are there to answer. If I'm a first time guest, like answer those questions, guide them through the process, make recommendations. And then as they get comfortable, then it becomes something that becomes more second nature for them.
For sure. And I don't have any issue using the kiosk. I like ordering on it, but it's oh, you forgot my ranch. Well, now there's no one there to even ask. So you literally are hollering back in the kitchen. And I never want that to happen at our restaurants. And I'm sure there are times when it does, but we really try to keep someone out front for that reason.
Few and far between. It happens, but we try to minimize it.
That's right.
I like it.
That's right.
People first.
Awesome.
That seems to be the ongoing theme here. We love to talk technology and AI and all the fun things that are happening, but people first still seems to be the agenda.
Yeah, you got it.
Which is good.
Hospitality, it's always going to be people first, no matter what we do.
That's right.
Cool. Well, Kristen, thank you so much for joining us today. For everybody listening and checking out the podcast, you can find Kristen and Edotto Accounting Services all over LinkedIn. And next time you're in Iowa, check out one of their Slim Chickens or one of their Taco John's locations.
Yeah, thanks, Rich.
And I recommend Kristen's a great follow on LinkedIn. She's always posting very interesting use cases and keeping everybody updated on what she's doing in Claude and AI. And if you haven't connected or you're not networking yet, start there. I guarantee it's a good follow. And of course, thank you for joining us. We hope you have a great day, a great shift, and a profitable. Well, it is Friday, so hopefully you're having a profitable Friday wherever you are. But don't forget, like and subscribe to this show everywhere. It's no small ask, but it really makes a difference, and we appreciate it. And of course, you can find Restaurant 365 on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TikTok coming soon. You can also follow us on all the social medias, Instagram, Facebook, and of course at restaurant365.com. Kristen, thanks so much for spending some time with us, sharing your insights, and looking forward to you doing $64,000 a day very soon.
Well, thanks so much for having me. It was great to be here.